looks like the clouds are coming in. Maybe that's a sign where the weather prediction is going to be accurate, where it's going to rain for the next couple of days. I guess with that in mind of gloomy weather, lots of gloomy news today. Some kind of mass shooting and stuff apparently. This one says 8 shot dead, including at least 6 Asian women at 3 Atlanta area day spas on Tuesday. 3 different ones, so the person actually traveled. And you can see initially it seemed like the police sent all these photos of the person. Like it says here, please share a suspect in multiple shooting on Highway 92 near Bell Ferris Road. If anyone recognizes a suspect or his vehicle, please call 911. So what's the story basically with this? It says here, police said, and a man suspected of carrying out all the attacks has been taken into custody. 4 victims were killed and another was wounded in a shooting on Tuesday afternoon at Young's Asian Massage in Cherokee County, north of Atlanta. And it says here, in Atlanta, police officers responded to a call of a quote, robbery in progress shortly before 6 p.m. local time arrived at a beauty spa to find 3 women shot dead, Police Chief Rodney Bryant told reporters. While investigating the initial shooting, report of the officers were called from a second spa across the street where a further victim was found dead of a gunshot wound. Robert Aaron Long, 21 of Woodstock, was taken into custody at about 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday in Crisp County, Georgia. In situations like this, I would imagine for most people, they'd be wondering why? What was the motive? And apparently, the person actually admitted to it. It says, police investigate suspect's motive in Atlanta area killings. Although in reading some of this, I don't like the way they've been labeling it, so to speak. It's probably just going to create more hate and division. It says, a white gunman was charged Wednesday with killing 8 people, most of them women of Asian descent, at 3 Atlanta area massage parlors in an attack that sent terror through the Asian American community that's increasingly been targeted. That labeling just doesn't sit right with me, because it's one thing if you don't know who the person is, they're on a run, then I can kind of see why you would have like a report like that, like from the police, for example, saying a white person, a suspect and so forth. But this one, you actually have the person in custody, and with the tension and all, with all the racism stuff, I think that's just creating more division. By the sounds of it, I don't know necessarily if it was race related, just based on this story anyways. It says Robert Aaron Long, 21, told police that the attack was not racially motivated and claimed to have a quote sex addiction, with authorities saying he apparently lashed out at what he saw as sources of temptation. 6 of the victims were identified as Asian and 7 were women. The shootings appear to be at an intersection of gender-based violence, misogyny, and xenophobia. Although everything's under investigation still, and it says authorities said they didn't know if Long ever went to the massage parlors where the shootings occurred, but that he was planning to go to Florida in a plot to attack some type of porn industry. He apparently has an issue, what he considers a sex addiction, and sees these locations as something that allows him to go to these places, and it's temptation for him that he wanted to eliminate. When asked whether somebody could have sexual encounters at the businesses, Bottoms did not answer, saying she did not want to get into victim blaming, victim shaming here. She said police have not been to the parlors in her city beyond a minor potential theft. So unfortunate situation overall. I guess we'll just have to wait and see as it's being investigated. Maybe it's a hate crime in the end, maybe it's just about sex, as they say here. It's just kind of interesting with the other aspect is how you're reading stories and comments of people who know the person. Some say he never cusses in his life, like to their knowledge, so it's so completely out of character. And then this thing is going around how apparently he was really involved with the church and all that. And it says here, we had the joy of witnessing the baptism of Aaron Long, and that was basically a while ago, just a few years ago actually. Which adds that point, how did this happen? Like someone like this with all these factors, you would assume they'd be so, I guess, kind and considerate, like they'd never do something like that. It made me wonder if I could add anything to that, because I would say here, like the life lesson in some ways would be there was probably tons of warning signs everywhere, but people just became blind to it, because I guess like there you could say with the stereotype, the person went to church and all that, the person never cussed in their life, at least like from what you see, so it's impossible. I actually have experience with someone who is actually addicted to sex massage parlors. At least that's what he told me, because actually what ended up happening was he scammed like a person like myself for money. At first he didn't say like that's what he was blowing all his money on, but I found out. And then because of that, I actually tried to help the person afterwards, but I guess kind of like, I guess you could say a drug addict. When your source gets cut off, then you gotta go to the next source, I guess you could say, right? Try to find money elsewhere to feed that addiction. So thinking there, what eventually happened was he didn't specifically kill anybody, to my knowledge anyways. If there was more people But in this case, what he did was, instead of trying to kill people, I guess like in this case, maybe the person was trying to hide it, he basically just started to tell people false stories of what was going on and all that. I guess one, to try to hide the fact that he was taking money from people. And fortunately for myself in that case, I had so much documentation about it, which actually showed what really happened. But actually, funny enough, there was a large group of people who actually knew this person very well, and they were like, impossible, kind of like in the same way here. Like, the person seems so nice and all that, they seem so generous. This guy must be like out of his mind to say he was doing this. But when you look at the facts and stuff like that, they show everything in terms of this guy was lying like crazy, and now I guess you could say trying to defame other people in order to hide his background and what he does to people in that way. Actually, funny enough, on my mind, it's kind of like what they say, where you have two sides of your brain arguing with each other, because in perspective, there was like a huge side of me saying, okay, this is obviously some kind of scam, the person's lying to you and all that, but the other side is like saying, yeah, but you've known this person for so long and so forth, there's no way he could be like this. And ultimately, like I said, the facts and stuff actually ended up being true in terms of how the person is in reality. So you have to actually keep open-minded in that way. I think it's a lesson for everyone in general, especially in this case. Again, now I learn nowadays, just because the person's never done anything bad to me and so forth, if someone says they have whatever facts or whatever about a certain person, what they did to them or whoever, then I will look at it in an impartial manner, because you never know. People could just be showing you, I guess, one side that they wish to show, and then in the background there could be tons of victims, I guess you could say. So it made me wonder if psychologically it's virtually the same thing, except obviously in this case the person took it to the extreme, where because he's viewed in a certain light, for example, a great person involved with the church, like they say, never cusses and all that, whereas if they see stuff like this, it completely shows like a different character in many ways. And I would imagine in that case, if it's true, the person feels that they're put in a position where they can't hide this, this will ruin them forever, and because of that, they have no other choice but to, I guess you could say, take out the targets, so to speak. I wasn't able to get my money back, unfortunately, in that case, but what I did walk away with was so much documentation, which I actually find really fascinating when you look at it, even from an outside perspective, because you can see psychologically exactly how the person targeted victims, I guess you could say, how they tried to lie about it, hide it, and how people just, or many people, not all, basically turned a blind eye to it, saying, impossible, the person would never do this and all that, but it's all there. So it actually gives you a good insight in terms of why people do stuff like this. Ultimately, I think in the end, the only thing I can determine is it's the environment that enables people to do that. So they basically grown up in many ways to be very juvenile-like, like you can't take accountability or responsibility. So instead of just admitting to it, you'd rather, I don't know, like a kid, you'd rather like punch the person or something like that because you did something wrong than just admit it and grow from it. That's just from my observation anyways. And some people just take it to the extreme, which I would imagine like in this story, unfortunately. In lighter news anyways, tech related, I read this, where apparently places are going to have drones flying everywhere autonomously, I guess more streamlined. This one says, mimicking an air traffic controller, AI orchestrates multiple drones in flight. Software from Israeli startup Airwayz Drones, set up by Israeli Air Force veterans, steers hundreds of unmanned vehicles in the same airspace without human intervention. This is one of the most progressive experiments in the world, in which drones from many companies are flying in an open and not controlled area, said Daniela Partam, head of the Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution at the Israeli Innovation Authority, which is in charge of fostering the nation's tech ecosystem. The purpose of the large-scale government-backed experiment is to understand what our skies will look like in the future, as hundreds and thousands of drones pepper our firmament to meet various needs. Online deliveries, photography, security, agriculture, and more. Such traffic in the sky of both tiny and bigger drones will need guidance and supervision. The aim is to set out standards and regulations to prevent accidents, injuries, and privacy intrusions from peeping drones. Oh, not that again. But I still wonder, I mean, again, it's one thing to have drone deliveries and stuff, huge drones and stuff flying like that, and monitor them like nuts, but if it's someone flying, I don't know, below tree lines for fun or something like that, maybe it's FPV drone, that's a little ludicrous, honestly. You're like, okay, we need to monitor that kid with a toy and so forth. As I say many times, just like traffic management with the roads, it should be like that ultimately. I mean, you don't get pedestrians and stuff to have licenses or like a regular bike rider. Basically, it should come down to what you're using and how. But I guess this shows it's coming really quick too, in terms of people wanting to integrate all this stuff, because I can imagine autonomous drone deliveries, for example, would definitely need stuff like this. Alright, see you guys later.